This is Gabrielle with the Investing News Network. I'm here in San Francisco at the Biotech Showcase. Today I'm speaking with James Garner, who is the CEO of Kazia Therapeutics. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Gabrielle. It's great to be with you.
That's great. So your company has had a lot of positive news this year, including starting a phase 2 study for glioblastoma this year, as well as for ovarian cancer, which are a couple of very difficult to treat cancers. Did you want to give a quick rundown on your company?
Absolutely. We're a publicly listed oncology-focused biotech company, and we have two programs in the pipeline. Our lead program, GDC84, is looking at glioblastoma, which is the most common and the most aggressive form of brain cancer, a really tough disease to treat, and so we're really excited to be trying to make a contribution there. And then our second program, as you said, is looking at ovarian cancer, and both of these programs are in clinical trials right now. We're largely doing that work in the United States, and we'll be seeing data out of both of them over the course of calendar 2019, so really exciting time for the company.
Thank you. So aside from what we've mentioned so far, what are some other big news that caught investors' attention in 2018?
Well, we had orphan designation for our glioblastoma drug come through early in 2018, which was really exciting. It kind of recognizes the need for need for new therapies in the disease, and helps us out quite a bit over the regulatory path with the drugs. So that was a really nice thing to tick off early in the year. And then right at the other end of the year, back in about October, we completed a small placement to sector specialist institutional investors, mostly in Australia. Raised just about $4 million, which nicely sees us through our next few data readouts over the course of 2019. So two nice bookends outside of the clinical programs that marked out 2018 for us.
Thank you. Now, as you mentioned, both glioblastoma and ovarian cancers are very difficult to treat. However, there are also a lot of companies focusing on these cancers right now. So how does your company stand out?
Well, if I can focus perhaps first on the glioblastoma side, a lot of companies have tried to work here, but I think the key thing has been that most of these companies have really been trying to take drugs that have been developed for other forms of cancer, and they've tried to apply them to brain cancer. So a lot of the trials we've seen over the last 10 years or so have really been a lung cancer drug or a breast cancer drug or a drug for something else that people have tried to develop in glioblastoma. And unsurprisingly, most of those studies, sad to say, have not been successful. And what's unique about our drug, what's unusual about our drug at the very least, is that our drug has been developed from the ground up as a drug for brain cancer. And it was initially developed by Genentech here in San Francisco, one of the world's leading cancer drug developers. And they really set out as a blank sheet of paper exercise to say what you need for a great brain cancer drug. And so our drug has been tailored to fit those needs. And one of the key things about it is that it gets into the brain. It crosses the so-called blood-brain barrier, which so few cancer drugs do. And that gives it, as I say, a unique relevance to brain cancer. So although this has been a really tough disease to treat, and a lot of people have tried, we really think we've got something new and different and unique to play with here. So that's been great. Our ovarian cancer drug is a little bit different. It was developed out of some Australian research in collaboration with Yale University. And the challenge we have in ovarian cancer is actually a lot of our first-line treatments work pretty well. You know, we have some good chemotherapy regimens and some good newer drugs for ovarian. But the problem is resistance and recurrence. And eventually, almost all treatments for ovarian cancer fail. We think that part of the reason for that is that ovarian tumors contain these so-called cancer stem cells that cause the tumor to recur. And our drug and the research done at Yale has shown really good activity against these cancer stem cells. So again, it hopefully means that we can really bring something new to the table here and provide benefit to these patients.
Thank you. And now financing throughout this conference has always been a big question to come up. So how's your company doing on that front?
Well, the great news is that we managed to raise a little bit of money late in 2018, and so we feel that we're pretty comfortable now through calendar 2019. Now, depending on exactly where we go with the programs, obviously we'll be needing to look at that continuously. We are a NASDAQ-listed company. Our ticker is KZIA. And so we have access to both the US and Australian markets as and when we need to. But I think the nice thing is this is an area where there's a lot of opportunities for grant funding. There's a lot of partnering interest right now in brain cancer. So I think our priorities in the near term are to generate some data with the compound, really see where we come out, and then I think to evaluate our long-term financing needs once we come out of some of the upcoming data readouts.
Thank you. And now, the goal for these readouts, would that be at medical conferences, or do you have any timeline for this?
Well, we're expecting to see some initial data from our glioblastoma program, hopefully in the first quarter. I want to say first quarter, it might be early second quarter. Always a margin of error in these things. And we'll probably just kind of share that with investors as we're going, as the study's still underway. And that'll be initially primarily safety data. We'll get an efficacy read on that study later in the year, and obviously exactly when we can kind of put that in front of people is going to depend a little bit on timing relative to conference deadlines. But one thing I would say is there is really so little progress in the treatment of glioblastoma historically that I think people are really watching this trial, really interested in the data. We presented, a study design poster at the Society for Neuro-Oncology back in November in New Orleans. And the level of interest from clinicians and scientists and even investors at that meeting was fantastic. So I think once we start getting some results coming out of that study, there's going to be some real great anticipation from clinicians. So hard to say exactly where we'll be in a position to take it at this stage, because it's going to depend a little bit on the exact timing of the study. But somewhere over the course of the next kind of 6-9 months, we'll be seeing, as I say, 2 pretty impactful data readouts. So that should be great to share with people.
Thank you. And now, what about manufacturing for these trials and the drugs?
We do all our manufacturing through contract manufacturing organizations. We're very much a virtual company, so we don't spend a lot of our money on building plants and equipment. We outsource that work and just do it as we need to. We work with some really great manufacturers in the United States and Canada, in fact, to do that work, and so we've been thrilled in that regard. As part of our initial transaction with Genentech around the GDC84 program, we actually received about 48 kilos of drug substance, which is super stable. So that's saved us a ton of time and money getting the study started. So we've just been manufacturing that into capsules as we need to. So we're in pretty good shape there, and it's something we've got a great colleague in Australia who manages that program, and it works out pretty well for us.
That's great. Now, you mentioned before about the research collaborations in play right now for the clinical trials, but are there any other collaborations or any licensing deals on the front that could be explored with commercialization later down the line?
For sure. And our strategy as a company is not really to seek to become a commercial pharmaceutical company. We sort of figure that's a different business, and it's one that's probably better left to other people. So ultimately our vision for both of these candidates is to see them partnered to somebody who can bring them to market effectively. Now, when and how we do that, I think we're pretty open-minded. You know, we've certainly had a lot of interest even here this week at Biotech Showcase, and I think we want to do so. Whenever we get there, we want to do so in a way that kind of represents good value to our shareholders and make sure that the drug is in the best hands. So there's no rush around that, and equally, I think a lot of ways that could play out. But ultimately, that's the aspiration for both of these drugs, and I think. Just as I say, given the challenge that there has been historically with glioblastoma, it really doesn't take a lot of positive data to really activate interest in this. And we've seen even just this week with things like Lilly's acquisition of Loxo for $8 billion, just how much one good data readout can transform the story there. So we're very attentive to that, and we've invested a lot of time kind of trying to build those relationships and that awareness so that when the time is right, we can have the conversation.
So, on that point, do you believe that there might be some interest as well in acquiring or licensing in new drugs for your pipeline?
Yeah, look, in a general sense, obviously just kind of speaking across the board, it's been interesting to see there's probably been a little bit of a shift in the last kind of 18 months, 2 years, from more licensing-driven deals to more outright acquisitions. And you know, there's some respects in which it's an easier transaction to put together for a pharma company. There's a certain kind of simplicity in just buying a company outright. And I think all these things, you know, for any company of our size and shape, all these things remain possible. I think, you know, our overriding concern in that regard is always to be attentive to value for money for our shareholders. I think if we had an opportunity that we thought was great for our shareholders, then we'd be happy to discuss it. But in the meantime, I think we're really happy just taking the programs forward ourselves and making sure we get great data that maximizes that value.
Thank you. And now we've talked about the data readouts, lots of information coming in 2019. Is there any other information that you want investors to know about for this or the next few years?
Yeah, I think one thing that's been really interesting is our focus has been on glioblastoma with the GDC84 program, and we feel very strongly that's the best, fastest, most sensible path to market for the drug. But we've had some great interest from clinicians at other centres to talk about other forms of brain cancer, and we've been really excited in the last kind of 6 months or so to be able to put in place 2 really exciting collaborations which are investigator-led, so we're very hands-off, but with fantastic centres doing work in other forms of brain cancer. One of those is with Dana-Farber Cancer Institute in Boston, and they're looking at the drug in breast cancer that has spread to the brain. And we know that you know, we treat breast cancer really well these days, but unfortunately we know that when it spreads to the brain, it becomes terribly difficult to treat. And there's a lot of good scientific reasons to think GDC84 could really help out there. So it's great to be working with the team there to see if we can get some insights. The other centre we've been really privileged to work with is St. Jude Children's Research Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee. And we're looking at our drug there in a rare form of childhood brain cancer. And frankly speaking, this is not millions of patients, thank goodness. But it's the very, very definition of unmet medical need. And so, and you know, the St. Jude team it's an incredible centre. And, you know, we're absolutely thrilled to be able to kind of work with them and see if our drug can help out with those kids. So it's great to be able to look at some of these other opportunities for the drug to bring benefit, and it's going to be really exciting to see what kind of data those read out over the next probably year or 2.
Thank you. So that sums up about all of my questions. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
Look, it's been great talking, and as I say, it's a really exciting year ahead for the company. I think we've got some great work ongoing, 4 clinical trials now, and at least as many data readouts over the course of the year. So I think it's going to be an exciting 2019 for us.
Great. Thank you so much for your time today, James.
Thanks, Cameron.